think that's for my dancing, Marie.
Oh, that's your dancing. Yes, that always gets them hearts. You're not getting dancing queens, though. You have to
There
do
we
both
go.
together.
The fade out. No more
There's a
dancing.
dancing
I'm like,
queen
enough. Enough.
on the last
Welcome,
one.
welcome. Hello, everybody. We are thrilled to welcome you to, I can't believe I'm saying this, our 14th episode of Unpack. Marie and I
Yay.
still find it amazing that we get the microphone every month. They keep letting us do this, which is amazing, but we are
Don't
so
call it out too
excited.
much.
That's right. That's right. And I am Blair Cecil. I co-lead our global talent attraction team here at McKinsey, along with
Hello, I'm Marie. I'm based in Amsterdam. Indeed, have the huge pleasure and privilege to lead our global talent attraction teams, and we are so excited that you are with us today. Thank you for taking the time. Like you said, Blair, incredible that is already episode 14. And if you're like, what? 14 episodes? And this is the first one I'm listening to. Well, don't you worry.
Don't you worry.
If you Google McKinsey Unpacked, but also in the email that you will be receiving from us after this, there's a link to the website where you can find all other 13 episodes if you want to catch up on things that we've discussed previously. And with McKinsey Unpacked, we really aim to give you a fun and engaging way to look behind the scenes of McKinsey and unpack different themes every week with you. And we are so thrilled always to welcome exciting guests to our episodes that give you a glimpse into the real life at McKinsey.
Yes, and I'm really excited. So we promise we won't talk too much. I want to get to our guests. We have two incredible guests with us today who I think will be, you will all really enjoy getting to know. But yes, as Marie said, the unpacked theme, we sort of chose that riffing on the fact that consultants travel, right? We want to be with our teams and our clients. And so unpacking the suitcase of what McKinsey's really like. So we have three sections. You know, you will quickly, if this is your first episode, learn we love everything in threes, but three general sections. The first is what's the roadmap for today, where we talk about things that are on our mind this month. The second is we really get into the topic, we unpack the topic at hand. And today we're going to talk about being one global firm, which is going to be, I think, terrific. And then Marie and I are both parents. Our final section is snack for the road. We know that one important rule, whether your children are small or big, you always bring food when you go anywhere on a trip. So snack for the road is
Also the requirement for my husband, by the way.
that's right. And maybe me too. But that's our chance to leave you with some advice, professionally, personally, that we hope you will find valuable. So let's dive in. Marie, roadmap today. Sister, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I was reflecting this week a lot because last week I'm still a bit on a high because we got together as a global partnership last week in Chicago, which was really incredibly special for multiple reasons. One reason, it's just really fun to get together with over 2,000 colleagues from all around the world, and some of which I only ever see at those gatherings from Australia or different places in the US. So that was amazing. And this one was also extra special because it was kicking off our 100-year celebration. Believe it or not, McKinsey is turning 100 in 2026, so next year. And so this was the kickoff to our celebration year, which was making it really extra special. And afterwards, I was looking a bit online, Blair, about what are some of the things that companies that have made it to 100, because there are a few out there, but actually not that many. The highest density of 100-year companies is in Japan, interestingly, I found out. But there are a few things that the research shows that they have in common, and they're one, a strong mission and culture, a continuous drive for innovation, being close to customers, and I mean that would be in our case our clients, having strong employee relationships and showing strong care for employees, and being an active organization and an active member in the local community. And I was like, yeah, check. That checks all pretty much for McKinsey as well. So I found that very interesting. But what was your highlight when we got together last week in Chicago?
Oh, it's hard to pick. It was, to your point, wonderful in so many ways. It was a wonderful celebration, but it's interesting. We called it a global partner gathering, not a conference, right? Because gatherings are for friends and family. And that's for me what it felt like. I agree, though there were over 2,000 partners from around the world there, you reconnect with so many friends and you realize it is about those important connections. Themes that have resonated with me beyond the 100-year celebration, we were really lucky to have a lot of external speakers come speak to us who were folks at the top of their game. We had incredibly impressive CEOs. We had some pretty impressive leaders in media, international affairs, even sports. And two things struck me. One is every single one of them said it was so humbling to be in the room with 2,000 McKinsey partners, which really struck me as what an incredible privilege it is to have this partnership. And again, we'll spend some time today talking about what that means to be a single global partnership. But the second theme I loved is they pushed us to use that privilege for good. Go out and do good things in the world, do good things for our clients, use that platform to lead from the front. And I found that really empowering. So though I'm exhausted, I promise I don't sound like this because of our partner gathering. It was an incredibly empowering week together.
And to share a little secret, why you're also so exhausted, because you have some pretty good moves on the dance floor, Blair.
Okay. All right. Fair. I might have had a really good time while we were all together, but that's what you do at birthday parties, right? So it was great.
Exactly. But let's move on to our next session for today's Unpacked, which is indeed the deep dive that is all around our one firm concept at McKinsey that maybe you've already heard about or read about, but it's kind of difficult to really understand what it means. But it is something, as you say, Blair, that we feel really makes McKinsey unique. There are a lot of organizations, of course, in the world that call themselves global, that have offices around the world. But for us, what we really feel is unique is this true one firm partnership where we operate every single day without borders for our people who work at the firm, but also how we interact with clients and how we, in our client work, access really our global expertise and resources, no matter where we are and what we do. And so we're extra excited to have two incredible guests today, who are both senior partners at opposite ends of the world. So maybe we can spotlight Tracy Francis from Sao Paulo and Rima Assi from our Dubai office. We're so thrilled. I think we should count up the decades of experience that we have here jointly on this call. Thank you so much.
That's right.
Tracy and Rima for taking the time to be here with us today. So maybe just to give a very brief introduction of our two amazing guest stars today. So Tracy has over 2 decades of experience, and in her day job, you work with clients in the Latin American region, and you have the exciting job also to lead our Latin American region as the regional managing partner. And before that, you were working on our reach and engagement agenda, leading that topic globally. So you've had a multitude of global roles. You've also, and you're getting lots of hearts, Tracy, so you can feel really good about yourself.
I'm all about the hearts. Invite me again.
Exactly.
And applause.
Exactly.
Yes, you should get applause because you have definitely some amazing accomplishments at McKinsey. And you've also spent a bunch of times in different regions of the firm, which is not unique. A lot of people have done that, but you have actually, spent time in 3 different offices, which I would say is probably on the higher end. And then we have Rima, and you two also know each other, right? You're friends at the firm and have known each other for quite some time. And you work in the Middle Eastern region on social, public, healthcare, and educational topics. You advise governments and policymakers on transformation across the North African and Middle Eastern region. And even more exciting, you were named one of Forbes' top 50 most powerful businesswomen, which is really incredible. So we are so excited to have you both with us today.
Thank you. I look forward to this conversation. Great to see you, Tracy.
You too.
It's amazing that you all, guys, truly, it's a gift that in the many hats that you wear at McKinsey, that you're taking the time to spend some time with us and help us unpack for our candidates what it really means to be a global firm. So thank you both so much for prioritizing this.
Marie, we're really lucky, Blair, right, that we get to have these conversations with these amazing McKinsey leaders. And so far, everybody has always said yes when we've asked if they want to be featured on
That's
McKinsey.
right. That's right. If I keep dancing, maybe they will say no. So I will try to behave myself. And I know we're being
dancing was awesome, Blair.
Yeah.
I was dancing.
All right, thanks, Tracy. We'll move on from that. Thankfully, I don't think there's a lot of video evidence of it, so that's a good thing. That's a good thing. But Marie, you mentioned earlier this concept of being one global firm. In addition to the fact that many organizations are in fact global, what makes McKinsey different as a global firm? I don't think as an incoming associate, for example, when I was in many of your all's shoes trying to get to know the firm, I didn't even know what that truly meant. And I certainly did not have any inkling of what an impact it would have and be one of the drivers of why, frankly, I've been here for over 20 years, is because we are one global firm. And so today we're going to explore a little bit from both Tracy and Rima's perspective on how that plays out, each in their regions, but also in their own roles and their decisions to continue to commit and enroll every day in our firm. So again, thank you so much for being here, both of you. We're really excited.
Maybe we start at the very beginning, though. Tracy, when
Bring
you
it back.
reflect back to your beginning moments, what initially drew you to the firm, and why have you stayed for so long, and what has shaped you most in the 2 decades that you've been here?
Sure. So you're going to think that the first part of my answer is a lie, but it's actually true. You're going to think it's a lie because it's so pertinent to this video or to this webcast. So I studied in Australia. My undergraduate degrees were in law and political science. And I actually really enjoyed the legal part of things. Like I love thinking about, constitutional reform and this type of thing. But I really wanted to be able to travel in my work. I wanted a global experience. And as a
Perfect.
lawyer, that's virtually impossible. And so I thought, okay, that's not going to work. And then I met someone who was at McKinsey. He had a very untraditional background, right? He had studied music in Mongolia, right? That was his master's
Wow.
was in, Mongolian split voice singing. And I thought, if that guy can get a job, surely I can get an interview. And I joined the Sydney office. It was the first .com boom. And so, randomly I ended up involved in a whole lot of work on how you value .coms, which no one knew how to do at the time. And so I ended up kind of traveling all around doing that, as well as just doing the sort of normal client service. I served a bunch of clients in New Zealand and in other places. And so I really did get, from the get-go that very global experience. Now to the second part of your question, which is why have I stayed? I over the years, I would give different answers to that question. Probably one element that's common the whole time is just the people, right? This community of people that you end up knowing, right? Be it your, BA class who you go on some type of a training with from different parts of the world, be it, the people committees you serve on, the personnel committees, which is how you evaluate, our people, the friends you make there, be it, now that that I have this kind of leadership role, the various exchanges of experiences that I have with the other regional leaders. That for me is just like it's complete oxygen. I love that. I love having a window on the world. I love being part of this global fabric and really, getting to help organizations also be part of that.
Love that. Rima, how about you? What's your origin story at McKinsey?
So quite different, actually.
Okay.
I am from the Middle East. I am Lebanese, and I grew up, my childhood was in Lebanon. But then I lived in France for a very long time, and I studied in Paris, and I was working in Paris. And I had this feeling that I really wanted to help my region on its development and transformation. And I wanted to be back in the Middle East and contribute, be part of this journey these countries were going through. Yet I wanted to do it in an environment that was very international and professional and will bring the best of the world for my region. And that's what drew me to the firm that was actually growing our presence in Dubai. And that's how I actually met and interviewed with colleagues in Dubai. And this was the beginning of a very long journey filled with amazing moments. And so initially, I actually thought I will do that, and then I'll figure out also whether I'll go back to Europe, I'll stay in the Middle East. And I thought, what best, where best can I do so than in a global firm like McKinsey, like the firm. And actually, this is exactly what happened. I joined the Middle East. I spent a few years, and then I had moments of emotionally feeling far from some parts of my family that was in France. And so then I actually managed the fact that I could actually go back and do some work in Paris. And along this time and this journey, I really found what I love to do the most, which was really stick to the Middle East and transform this region. And so here I am 20 years down the road. So that's what I like about the firm. And so to your question, why am I still around?
Yeah.
It's in the beginning, it used to be the learning. I used to find it amazing how much I'm learning. I had a job before the firm. After 2 years, I was bored. I felt I was doing the same thing again and again. And I never felt that in the firm 20 years down the line.
Yeah.
But beyond the learning, I totally agree with Tracy. It's the friends, it's the friendship, it's the people, it's the collaboration, the friendship from all around the world. That's what I love.
Talking about friends, when did you two meet?
Yeah, good question.
Well, how? Do you remember?
I remember when I saw Tracy first. I remember when we actually connected was much later. So we have a network of women in the firm that actually support each other and try to help our women to actually find sponsors, collaborate, etc. And Tracy was leading this initiative at some point. And we had on the back of a partners meeting, a conversation on what do we do to help our women. And this is where I saw Tracy for the first time. And so I don't know how long,
That's
but
amazing that you remember
long time. But
a long time ago. Yeah. But I think where we got to know each other better was we did that session together in Seoul, which was essentially about, what we were trying to do was in some way portray the humanity of the firm and of a partnership, because it can be quite conceptual, right? We're part of a partnership. Okay, what does that actually mean? Yep. And what it means is a combination of individual stories that kind of knit together into this amazing fabric. And so one of the stories, Rima was kind enough to share, a version of what she just told here, right? How did she come to the firm? What does the firm mean to her? What's her personal experience? And it was a really beautiful session.
That's cool. I love what both of you said. First of all, the friendships that you spark can live across regions and gender and time in a way that I think is very different at McKinsey. There are folks that I consider to be great friends that I've not met in person for the first 5 years of knowing them, because we're so interconnected on Zooms and calls, and then you see them in 3D. And you're like, I feel it's maybe not appropriate that I'm giving this person a bear hug. I've never met you in person before, but I love that, because I do think we are so connected that even if you're in very different parts of our world geographically and role-wise in terms of the day-to-day work that you're doing, we find ways to be together. I also, Rima, love your point on always learning. Marie and I laugh about this quite a bit. I feel like many of our peers who started with us at McKinsey 20 years ago and maybe now are out in the world are dialing it in, frankly, in senior leadership roles. And there's an element that I think, what has gone wrong? There is no part of our jobs where we are ever dialing it in. But I think that's part of the magic of McKinsey. No matter how senior you are always being stretched to learn something new, apply your expertise in a different way, which I think is really exciting. So I just wanted to highlight that I love that as well.
Yeah, that is a bit of a common theme, right? No matter what role you have, where you are, how far you are in the journey, most people will say they like it or they stay because of the people and because they continue to learn and grow. That's kind of, no matter what profile you have or how you got here, that's kind of a little bit the essence in a
I agree.
Let's maybe move to this. We've touched on it already a few times, this whole idea around like one firm and what that really means. Maybe we can bring that to light a little bit. Tracy, like if you think about this whole idea of one firm concept, what does it mean to you, and how does this show up in your day to day, or how does it make your life easier, and yeah, how do you experience this?
Yeah, I think super tangibly, what it means is, when I'm going to talk to a client about something, I know there is someone in the firm who is very deep on whatever I'm going to talk about. And, with one phone call, one email, one text, one Slack, whatever is your preferred method of interacting, I can get that person to engage and to share their experience and their depth with my client. And then assuming that's important and relevant to my client, and that's an area where we want to collaborate and partner, that person will participate and be part of creating the results for that client. And, it sounds sort of on the one hand, like, yeah, of course. On the other hand, I mean, it's crazy. Like, I remember when I was a business analyst, I was, one of the first pieces of work I did was in a pulp and paper factory in like the middle of rural New Zealand. And, we were dealing with what's the recipe for the pulp, right? I mean, as I said before, political science and law, I am definitely not someone who knows anything about a pulp recipe. And there was this guy called Jeff Lane. I remember his name because he, was such a beacon of, knowledge and hope and light for me. And he used to come down every 2 weeks. He was in Atlanta. He'd come down every 2 weeks and, sit with me and sit with a client and share his knowledge and what he'd seen doing this all around the world hundreds of times before. And as a result, we were able to, really improve how the organization operated.
I love that. I love that. I think that's something that floored me too. I remember being a summer associate staff to an insurance project. So I was also law, Tracy, and an English major and nonprofit work and journalism. So I was dead unqualified to be serving an insurance client, which is great. But that's the magic of McKinsey. I remember there was an expert in Singapore at the time, and I thought, who's going to pick up a phone call from a summer associate? And lo and behold, that person did. And they got me very smart on the topic very quickly, which I just thought from truly week 2 at the firm, I thought, well, this feels different, which is really special.
Yeah.
Rima, you and Tracy are both in geographic leadership roles, which are big jobs, and of course, by definition, focused on the area that you're leading. How does the one firm concept play into that role? So in thinking about leading Dubai, how does one firm affect your role doing so?
I mean, I think being on opposite parts of the globe doesn't change much to what we do day in, day out. Like, we serve our clients and we lead our offices, or we do any internal role, a practice or an office. And that means actually making sure that all our colleagues are collaborating and doing their best and collaborating locally and globally to all together serve our clients in the most distinctive way.
Yeah.
And so what it means in my case is nothing different than what Tracy said. Our clients are not only local, they have global aspirations, they're expanding globally, but they also want to learn from global practices, because they want to learn, not just they want to research, that's very simple now, but they want to really experience it. They want to get deep into it and understand what it meant in these different institutions context, and how do they apply it to their own context. And that's where the magic of the global firm is, because as Tracy said, in any sector, in any industry, I am sure by looking around and asking around, I will find the 3-4 colleagues that could bring the most comprehensive and deep perspective on any topic. And what is amazing is I am equally excited to call them, then they're equally excited to pick up the phone and actually help. And this is what makes this place magical.
I love that. I love that. I think that is so true, that it's both you build that courage quite quickly to reach out to others. You very quickly realize that there is a reason we are one global firm and we are a partnership, and our client service teams are not individuals serving clients. They are quite literally teams. We make each other better. So I think you build that muscle quite quickly to be a bit fearless in, no matter how senior the person is, reaching out to them. And I love your point, Rima, that it's so embedded in our culture. You pick up that phone. You are very happy to field a random question from someone on the other side of the world because that's what we do to help each other, which I love.
Exactly. There's also the generosity that you give the time and you spend time with the team because you are really deeply personally, you feel incentivized, you feel motivated to help all teams around the world succeed. And it actually starts already pretty early. I remember when I was a business analyst in Germany, we codified some of the work that we had done with our client in Germany. And then we have a knowledge database where we basically store all the McKinsey wisdom that we collect from our work over the years, of course, in a way that is shareable and that make sure we adhere to client confidentiality. But so we're sharing some of the things that we figured out, and then you get a call and then your names appear. And even as a business analyst, a team might call you and say, hey, we saw you were part of this paper. We saw that in our internal knowledge database. Could we have a quick chat about it? So it's not just calling the super experts and the very senior people. You also often just get called as a team member just because they want to understand the on the ground experience that you had actually getting this done with a client or in a situation.
Yep.
What is super exciting, of course, if we think about this, our audience, some of the people or many of the people are probably still at the beginning of their career, and maybe hopefully a lot of you are contemplating joining McKinsey, maybe now or in the future. But what is really exciting to our people is often to also work in an international environment and setting. And while a lot of our staffing is, of course, locally, there is also an opportunity to work across countries. And Tracy, you are a good example that you have moved offices. I have worked with people from different nationalities. I've also moved offices myself. I started in Munich, went to London, now I'm based in Amsterdam. Rima and Tracy, do you have an example of some, like, your most fun or impactful experience that you had in a team that was where you had multiple people from different nationalities coming together?
Oh, that's a good question.
I never liked these. What was your best memory, your most fun moment?
Yeah. So hard to
It's impossible.
One that stood out,
Exactly.
maybe, to make it
So
easier.
I'm going to answer. I think the answer is slightly different than a team room. But I did this program that exists in the firm today. But I did it, 20 years ago now, or more than 20 years ago, which is called the Diamond Program. And this was basically around.
Still exists, huh?
Yeah, that's exactly. I was an associate. And basically this program was to, move people around the world. In my case, I was living in the United States. I was in the San Francisco office. And the idea was to, take some, the expertise that, I had developed in the United States and, to an emerging market. And then I was able to sort of combine the interests of McKinsey with my personal interest because I had this Brazilian boyfriend who is now my husband. And so I said, I'd like to go to Brazil. And there was this sort of back and forth. Don't you think you should go to China? I was like, no, I'm going to Brazil. Anyway, so I ended up in Brazil. But the Diamond Program in and of itself, right, was this kind of collection of people. And we would get together. We got together 3 times over the course of the year to essentially learn about how to be successful in a different culture. And so in my case, that meant that I needed to learn to speak Portuguese, right, which I didn't speak. There's like a bunch of interesting things around culture shock and how do you adjust to a new culture without kind of, impacting who you are as a person, and all these types of things. But I think what was most interesting was, I came to Brazil. There was a guy called Alistair Ramsey who was a partner. He was English in Brazil. He and I started doing some work with some Brazilians on the emerging lower class, right, which was not called that at the time. I think it was just called bottom of the pyramid. And then we there was this whole boom and global interest around the emerging middle class, in the sort of 2005, 2007 timeframe. And Alistair and I then ended up collaborating with, a bunch of people in different geographies in India and Russia, in various other emerging markets around the world to kind of bring this understanding of what does that sort of set of consumers need. So from the Diamond Program, I ended up in Brazil doing this research, expanding it out globally. It was just, mind-blowing, right?
Yeah. I love that. Rima, do you have again, it's hard to pick a favorite. You can never pick a favorite child. You can never pick a favorite CFT. We get it. But where has a truly global team resonated with you or a memory you hold on to?
So I don't know what to tell you because Dubai is a melting pot of cultures.
Yeah.
So I
That's
have
true.
never been in any team that does not have more than 3, 4 individuals
That's
come
true.
all around the world. I've never been in any meeting where everybody speaks like
I
where
love
the
that.
mother tongue of
It's very
everyone
different to
is the
Germany,
same.
where I started, where
So
that's
I actually don't know what to tell you. Every day is one of those experiences. And what it actually means for me is like I can't imagine being in an environment where everybody's the same. Actually, I've never been in one. And that's very enriching because you learn how we have different ways of reacting. We have different ways of expressing ourselves, of expressing excitement, but also discontent. And you learn to actually understand how different cultures react. What is totally
Yes.
acceptable in one culture is not in another one. And that's actually a great way to learn, and that becomes a new normal. But one of the things that also I find amazing is uh, I also had I'm part of what we call the client service teams, so the teams that work together to serve a client with colleagues from different parts of the world. While it's amazing, but it's so difficult to find the time that works for everyone when you have
Yeah.
somebody in San
Yes.
Francisco, Boston, and in Europe, and the Middle East, and in Asia. So
Yeah.
that's actually the balancing act of all these global teams. But I mean, it's really what makes this place magical, and I think what makes the world amazing is that this ability of everyone, wherever we are from, to get to understand each other and collaborate and really get to better outcomes and better answers.
I love that.
You know,
and that's
can I
very
just,
quickly
I
also
want to
be
add something to what
Yeah.
Rima
Yeah.
said, which I know, and I know now I'm interrupting, but really
No,
made me
no.
think, right? Because this point that Rima says about how do you learn how people express themselves, how they show up, all of that, I think is so interesting and so important and such a privilege. And then on the other hand, there's also something very curious in McKinsey, which is we have a vernacular, right? It's like we have our own language. We have a specific way of thinking and solving problems that is actually common across the globe. So on the one hand, you go to a different place or you have someone from a different place on your team. And so you're learning these kind of social cues, let's say.
Yep.
On the other hand, the way we think has a commonality around the globe that I find absolutely extraordinary.
Yeah.
I love that, Tracy. We often say that you can walk into any McKinsey office anywhere in the world and it feels familiar, which
Yes,
I think is a
I agree.
really unique thing about our firm, even if you have never been there before. It's pretty amazing.
I
agree.
remember, I mean, this is a long time ago, but I remember when a client one walked into the team room and said, "So how long have you all been working together?" And I was like, "Well, since Monday." And he was like, "What? It does not feel that way. You guys are awfully efficient and in your teamwork for a team that just got together 3 days ago."
That's right. But that's true. That's where the rituals, the common things and practices we do within our teams creates a commonality that, in my mind, is the perfect foundation for what you talked about, Rima, which is we bring really different perspectives, not just in terms of problem solving, but who we are as humans, our cultural, bends, how we see the world. And that is part of the magic and the fun of them and the messiness, frankly, of our hyper global teams, which I agree with you. And I would argue, Rima, I think it's super true for places like Abu Dhabi, but I think that's true almost in any team in the world. Some element of the problem you're going to be working on will be outside of whatever region you're focused on, whether that's Tracy, your example of pulling in expertise from someone who is from somewhere else, or though it's a local problem for the client, the ramifications are potentially global. So I think that's an exciting value proposition.
Yeah.
Switching gears a little bit, I love thinking back to the things that I wish I could go tell my candidate self 20,000 years ago to ask about, think about, care about. And something that I absolutely didn't think about was how an organization is structured and how that actually affects the culture, how they operate. So Tracy, maybe to you, we have over the decade, over our 100 years, our first 100 years, at various points made some very conscious decisions to remain a single global partnership, right? And we talk about how we share one P&L. Again, for folks who are joining us who would think, why would that matter at all as I'm considering different firms, different models? What do you think that means to be one global partnership? And in particular, why should that matter to someone who's considering joining us?
Yeah, so I thought this was really well articulated by one of our guest speakers at the Global Partner Gathering that you mentioned last week. And he was talking about how the organization he works in, is on this path to be a global organization. But what's very challenging is they grew through various integrations, right? But each country has a P&L. So when they go to collaborate, there's always a little bit of a fight over who gets the credit, right?
Yeah.
If my incentive is to grow sales and Rima's incentive is to grow sales and we're doing something together, is she going to take the credit for the sales growth? Am I going to take the credit for the sales growth? Is Latin America going to do better than the Middle East, right? All of that comes into play. And because we have one global P&L, that's just not one of our issues, right? I've never had a conversation that has anything remotely like that in McKinsey. It just does not exist as part of our fabric, right? And so I think that's one thing. The other thing that I think is really important that is sort of related to our, financial structure is that we have one global P&L and we have one global balance sheet. And one global balance sheet means that we can really, really tie what we do with our clients to the impact, right? We can say, okay, I think that we're going to be able to get such and such an impact. Let's be partners in this. And I think that also makes an enormous difference in terms of our ability to really go, not just work on the idea with a client, but bring that to fruition and actually see an organization transform itself.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
So that also means a bit, from what I hear from you, Tracy, right, that you don't have this internal competition where you're trying to yeah, exactly, because you're incentivized to collaborate and to work together, right? Because in the end of the day, everybody.
Yes. And in fact, I mean, it's sort of something curious, but when we look at our incentives, we actually, almost double count a bunch of stuff in order to promote collaboration, right? We have chosen, in any organization, you have to choose what your hierarchy of values are, right? Our, global collaboration is a more important value to us than perfection in the monitoring of numbers. And so we do a bunch of double counting to, have that global collaboration.
Yeah.
But I would add to that, that trickles down in so many things we do, right?
Yes.
So we encourage our colleagues since they join to actually collaborate with whoever around the world. We encourage them to get to know each other. So many of our trainings are global. Why are they global? Because we want our colleagues from everywhere in the world to spend time together, to get to know folks that have joined around the same time, that are going through the same experiences, learning same things from everywhere around the world, to become friends. Because ultimately, this is a big group of friends that are doing amazing things together and learning from each other. And so
I love
that's how the system encourages that too.
I was in Chicago. I caught up with a BA who I worked with earlier this year, and she was at one of our training programs this week in Bangkok, and she was super excited. And I'm now working in Amsterdam with somebody, and she's going on a training in Costa Rica in December. So this is really a highlight for our colleagues' journeys.
Absolutely.
As we said at the beginning with Unpacked, we also want to unpack a bit of the myth that sometimes come with McKinsey and the stories. And one myth that comes with this whole idea of one firm, one global partnership, that sometimes people then feel like, oh, that means I can be staffed anywhere globally tomorrow. I just got a phone call and then I get sent anywhere in the world, which is not true. Rima, how would you describe our staffing model? How does it work?
So our staffing is led by the community. Your professional development manager is the person that actually helps navigate and guides each individual through their
somebody
journey.
Local, right? In your office.
It's somebody who is in your own office. So because that person needs to be close to you and understand what you do, etc. And therefore, you're highly encouraged as an individual, and you start the firm to actually work with colleagues around you in your home office and in your community. The only point is that if you want to do something outside of your community and your home office, you can. But by and large, you are actually going to be strengthening the bonds, learning in your office, in your local community. Because again, going back to this is what matters. But we don't want you to just stay in one office and not know what's happening around the world, because that's not the profile of any individual that joins the firm.
I love that. We often describe it to candidates as sort of the best of both worlds, no pun intended, that you are staffed locally. And that's very much by design, because it is our job when you start as a consultant to help you build not only your consulting toolkit, but your networks, your friendships, that connective tissue that, we're very much an in-person model. And there's a reason for that. We want our teams together with the clients. And then when you're not at the client, we want them in their home office. And so you are really staffed with that lens initially, but you also have great agency and choice. And in particular, as you have built your toolkit out, you're starting to build your networks, you're thinking about topics you're interested in or people you want to work with. I agree, Rima. That's where we say, go and broaden your horizons. We often tell people too, we are a very entrepreneurial place. We really celebrate self-starters. So I think, the people who tend to really thrive in this sort of hybrid model of local with global opportunity are the ones who have a strong sense of what they need at what point in their lives and their development and ask for it. So I think it's wonderful that, people raise their hand and say, I really
Or go
would
out and
love
find it
to-"
themselves, right? Make your
Exactly.
connections, reach out to people you've met before. And
Exactly.
people have different interests. There's some people who say, actually, you know what, I actually want to be involved in the local community. I don't want to travel as much because maybe I have obligations that keep me more local, and others that join McKinsey because they say, well, this is an amazing opportunity for me. Like what you said at the beginning, Tracy, why you joined, because I do want to explore the world. I want to be staffed as much abroad as I possibly could. And we have
Well, let's be honest. Tracy said she wanted to be near her Brazilian boyfriend. So
that was later.
No,
That was
you can
later in the
optimize.
career.
After.
All
That was
right.
after.
That
At the
was
beginning, I
later,
wanted to
man.
go everywhere. And then actually, by the way, then when I had my kids were younger, I didn't want to go anywhere. And so
Yeah.
to the point, it changes over time as well, right? What how you want to engage in this global fabric.
And I
Yeah.
don't think that point is very important. I mean, it's exactly the same for me. When I joined the firm, I wanted to travel and visit and get to learn from many places. And then when I had my kids, I wanted to stay at home. I didn't want to be on a plane running around the world. Now that my kids are teenagers and they don't want to be
You're like, I want to
Now
leave.
that they're running
No,
around the
I have
world, you're
to
like,
make
I
a
want some of that too.
I have to make, I had twins as my first children, and I actually was always looking forward to a trip somewhere else where I could sleep a full night in the hotel. I was like, bye.
Good luck.
But don't tell my children.
That's right. Hopefully they'll never see this recording, Marie. What could
No,
go?
probably
They'll
not.
never see it. They'll
They're
never see it.
11, luckily no interest yet.
We always get interesting questions in the chat, but I want to maybe pick up on one because I think it relates to this. There are elements of being in a hyper global firm that are, I think you all have shared why that has been so special. And there also are challenges. Rima, you mentioned the trying to get a single time of day when everybody involved in a certain topic or on a project could possibly be talking awake together can be really challenging. What else is challenging about some of the global roles? And again, you two both lead geographic regions, so have to be connected. And how do you deal with those challenges?
Very interesting. So I tell you, one of mine is, I always have this conversation with my husband who's like, are you really going to such and such a place? And the reality is that, Rima and I are both part of, leadership team of, a large global enterprise. You got to get on a plane, right? And so, for example, next week I'm going to Japan for 2 days, right? It takes me a week to go to Japan for 2 days because it's really far from Brazil, right? On the one hand, I'm excited. On the other hand, I'm like, wow, that's a lot, right? So I think that's kind of one of the challenges. And then I think there's sort of, the other challenge is that the way institutions operate is not the same around the world, right? And so you have to find a way to bridge this idea of we're global, but we understand how each, local operates. Because if you try to take, pick your favorite, large country, you try to take that model and apply it in Guatemala City, right? I promise you it's not going to work. And by the way, if you take the model that we operate in Guatemala City, the way we relate to clients, the way we develop, what we do, the way we, that's also not going to work in your favorite large country, right? And so I think everyone having an open mind and navigating that with curiosity and appreciation is super important.
I love that. We mentioned global trainings. I still don't know how I pulled this off. I managed to do we don't have this training anymore, but when you're a late associate, becoming what we call an engagement manager, where you're really learning how to be a team manager. My session was in Kitzbühel, Austria, where we have a wonderful facility that we use for trainings and firm events and client events, and it's pretty magical. But exactly what you said, Tracy, I brought my very American self to I really did in all
your
my
favorite
glory.
large country.
That's my favorite large country. That's me. I'm a hugger, I'm a talker, I'm a share everything I'm thinking on my mind. We're best friends immediately. And I remember having a feedback session one of the first days where I think I was with a Swiss, a German, someone from India, and they gave me some very pointed feedback to say, hey, friend, your energy is wonderful. That doesn't always work in every environment. And I was crushed. You guys, I literally remember going back to my room in Kitzbühel and crying because I thought, what do you mean? I've always been celebrated for that. But it was such a valuable moment for me to recognize, hey, wait a minute, you've got to actually have that sensitivity, not just across cultures, but in any environment. Clients can be quite different and have very different cultures. And it was a bit of tough love to say you have to modulate your style. And when you are in a super global firm, you learn that very quickly. Now, I would argue I still am pretty American, and I still get feedback sometimes to rein it in.
I was being very quiet there. I was not going to comment.
I know, Marie. I know you're itching. You'll give me some feedback on the side. But it is, I think, there's a trust there to know that, hey, we give each other feedback to make each other better. And so I love that.
And that's also core of who we are as a firm, right? That we have the best intent to make everybody the best version of themselves that they can be.
I agree.
Rima, you said you live in a region where multiple cultures it's part of your day to day and not something that gets together when you go to an international training program. Any learnings from you from that angle?
Look, I actually, this is what I wanted, this is what I was mentioning, the few things, like, for example, the language we speak in an environment. How do you make sure you always speak a common language that everybody understands, and then not fall for speaking French if you're surrounded by French and there's an Indian colleague who doesn't, etc. And then you forget these things. That's one thing. But also being non-judgmental, being open, like, remember how really be open that people have different levels of acceptance of things, of sensitivities, of norms, of what is acceptable, not acceptable, and there's no right or wrong. They're just different things. And that's for me, I mean, is very enriching. Sometimes it can be complicated to deal with, right? So it just
to say the least. That's right.
And that curiosity is so. Sorry, there you go.
No, go ahead, Marie.
No, I was going to say this curiosity is so important. I mean, not just for our work, because it's all about finding the best possible answer for our clients. And that comes often with, being curious and trying to look at the problem from different angles. It's also so important if you think about what AI and technology is going to do to our work and how that is going to amplify a lot of the things and adapt a lot of the things that we do, and where curiosity will help you learn and get acquainted with that technology in a much better way. So that's a skill and a muscle that is good to have for multiple reasons.
I love that, Marie. It's curiosity, not just about the problem, but the people. That's the fun of it, right? There is no problem you will ever work on that doesn't involve the people behind the problem. So I love that's having that sense of curiosity about other humans, not just the problem you're working on, is part of what I think makes our experience so much fun. I hate to wrap this conversation up. I know we're getting close to the hour, and you two have been unbelievably generous to give us this much time in your busy lives. But this is the part of our session where we give people a snack for the road, a tip, a bit of advice. I would argue, I think you've given some golden nuggets of advice along the way, but would love if you had one piece of advice to give someone, let's say they're leaving university or even professional graduate school earlier in their career. What is one piece of advice to thrive, not just in a global firm, but frankly in our global world?
Yeah. So I think we've talked a lot about it here, but I think this idea that you go into the world with an openness and a curiosity and an appreciation for the way others see, behave, act, solve problems, I think is a really helpful way to approach the early years of your career, actually all years of your career, but early years of your career in particular.
I love that. Rima, words of wisdom.
Look, very similar. And then maybe I will put it differently just to add a nuance, which is if you feel you've made up your mind about someone, think twice. Like, think twice. Ask yourself why and try again, right? And that's what I would say.
I absolutely love that. I just had an experience the other day where someone really ticked me off. We had a not productive conversation.
I hope
was all
not me,
fired
though.
up. It wasn't Marie. Okay, no, it wasn't. It wasn't you. I won't give you feedback in front of 364 friends. Rima, I love that because I was, I had really thought about how I was going to come back and share the feedback and say that didn't work for me. And instead I just thought, wait a minute, how about I approach it with curiosity? So instead I called the person and said, hey, what were you trying to get out of our conversation? And like, how do you think that went? And it changed the entire tenor of the conversation. So I love that. I made assumptions about why they, said what they said. And instead I just said, I'm going to release all of that and I'm just going to ask and be curious about it. And it led to so much more of a productive conversation. So I love that point.
And what I love about that example is just picking up the phone and talking to people.
Picking up the phone.
I think too often, and especially in a global firm.
That in and of itself is a good piece of advice. Pick up the telephone.
Yes,
Pick up the
yeah,
phone.
no,
Don't send an email. Just
That's what I always say to my kids. Conversations that are difficult are not via
but that
WhatsApp.
doesn't happen a lot, right? Especially in a global firm and it's a different time zone. You feel you don't want to intrude. You don't know what. And I heard actually some people find it rude if you just call. I didn't know that that's a thing that you shouldn't just call people. I still just call people.
Yeah.
But I think we just all should call each other more, frankly.
I completely agree.
Sending text and emails.
I think this, we might sound like we are of a certain generation, Frank. That's okay.
Doesn't matter.
I think that's a golden nugget from all of us. And
I
that's
was thinking about my kids responding to this, just pick up the phone and call. And they were like, oh my God.
I heard a partner say the other day, you want to know the quickest way to freak out a business analyst? Call them out of the blue. Right? They answer the phone. They're like, what's wrong? You're like, nothing. I was just calling to see how you're doing. What'd you learn today? How can I be helpful to you? And they're like, so there you go. That's our goal.
Thank you, Rima and Tracy, for spending your wisdom, experience, insights with us. This was fantastic. And thank you to all of you for listening. We are back with the next episode in December.
Yes. Thank you again to two heroes of ours. It was so much fun to pull you in from other corners of the world. So thanks so much. We are so grateful. See you all soon.
Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.